Welcome to Vitamin OC. I'm Joanna Weiss.
And I'm Whitney Gomez. Every week we bring you your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County.
Today we are so excited to be joined by Amy Luna Capelle, the current Executive Director of WAVE, Women for American Values and Ethics. WAVE was founded in 2016 after Trump was elected the first time and was designed to build political power here in Orange County, specifically for women. I was incredibly proud to found WAVE back in 2016. And so incredibly proud of the work that Amy continues to do. It's become a force for women's voices, civic engagement, and helping women and men get elected here who share WAVE's values. So thank you for being here, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to spend some time with you talking about issues in Orange County.
Amy, I was so interested to learn about your background as your civic journey has very deep roots. You spent 5 years as the president of the board of the Journey School. You managed a local school board campaign, and you currently serve on the board of the Community Action Fund of Planned Parenthood of San Bernardino and Orange counties. I read with great interest your recent piece in the Truth OC called "The Republicans Are Banning Abortion in California," subtitled "They're Doing It in Uniquely Sinister Ways." We look forward to talking to you today about your path to leadership, the unique challenges in California surrounding reproductive rights, and what all of us can do to contribute to protecting and expanding those rights.
You've been involved, as Whitney mentioned, in Orange County civic life for many years in so many different ways. And one of the things we like to ask people on the podcast is how they got into doing this kind of work. Linear. But can you tell us from your personal experiences how you started being involved in civic life?
My civic life began, I think, how a lot of women's civic life begins with getting involved in their children's schools. When my kids were young, the school was sort of in a startup phase, and there was a need for some leadership and literally hands-on work to make the school thrive. We literally put furniture together. We dug gardens. we cleaned up the campus. I had the time to become a room mom, so I did. I saw that there was a need to organize the room moms, so I did. Then went on to leadership through the parent organization, served as president for several years. Then when there was an opening to become a board member, I joined after many years of saying no. But while that was happening concurrently, right, 2016 happened. Up until that point, all of my political action had really been just voting. And I thought that was enough. But when 2016 happened, I was just so devastated. That was when I thought, all right, it's time to get a little bit more involved and do more to get those people that we want to see elected into office and make the government more reflective of our priorities. One of the original 21 members that founded WAVE saw me in a restaurant, and they're like, "Amy, there's a bunch of badass women getting together to do something, real work to build power in Orange County. I'll keep you updated." I'm like, "Okay, yes, please do," because I wanted to learn more. I started going to meetings, going to the marches, made my first political contributions ever. And it was really an exciting time to feel like we were doing something. I knocked doors for Harley Ruda and for Katie and for Mike, all of them, because I wanted all of them to win, right? And again, first time that I ever did that. One of my very best friends in 2019 said, "Hey, I'm going to run for office. Will you please be my campaign manager? I'm a PTA mom. What do I know about running campaigns?" But it really, a lot of those skills are very, very similar. The organizing that's involved, the trying to recruit people, trying to convince them to come on to your side. It was an interesting campaign because she was going for a position that had a 24-year incumbent and was a Republican. And in a Republican majority district. It was going to be a tough haul to get my friend elected. But because she had such a strong message and such a strong work ethic to get out there and talk to every single person in her area, we were able to win by 10 points, which was huge. That was my first foray into political campaigns. She then also ended up running for Congress as well. So I helped with her primary campaign. Parallel to that life, my involvement in WAVE also became greater. I joined the endorsement committee and spent a couple years doing that. Joanna, when you ran for Congress, you asked me to step up to be the communications director. I didn't really want to do it.
But like Allison, we're convincing, right?
I see you need me, I'll do it. Being in that position really was kind of the stepping stone to eventually becoming executive director, just because you're so involved in every facet of the organization. And it was really a good training ground for that. Parallel to that, I got involved in Planned Parenthood and joining the board. I've been a board member there for a little over 2 years now. I am also on a schools committee for the Center for Asian Americans in Action. I often surprise myself that the things that I get involved with, I actually have spent my whole life preparing for, and I just didn't know it.
Good. Well, it sounds like all of the work that you did on the room parent and the PTA side built up to a role as a very hands-on board member and then president for the Journey School. They're very different roles, obviously, but it's important to know both roles, and they're both very important work. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you learned about governance and leadership from your presidency at the Journey School?
I like to think of Journey School as kind of a microcosm of our country as a whole. There are people of all political persuasions who are in the school. If I had to guess, it was probably like a third, a third, and a third of, people who were Democrats, Republicans, and then kind of somewhere in the middle or not at all engaged in politics. We also had a lot of different ethnicities there and backgrounds. I think in one of the classrooms, there was something like 14 different native languages spoken by the parents because it was a public school. Also, a diversity of socioeconomic background. It was a really interesting job to navigate and to consider all of those different life experiences and viewpoints that each of our parents and teachers had in the school. What it really taught me was that at the end of the day, a lot of people have kind of that same goal in mind. They want what's good for their kids. They want what's good for the teachers. They want what's good for our society. They just have a different view on what that good thing is. One takeaway was just trying to see the good part in everybody and to give people the benefit of intent and to be curious to understand a little bit more about why somebody was upset or advocating for a certain thing. And then at the same time also being transparent and being willing to have these tougher conversations.
Amy, that's incredibly good advice. It's also advice I've heard for parents of teenagers to be very generous when you think about another person's intent. It's good advice in the political environment today as well. So thank you for that. In the school board race, you must have been very close to how things that were going on politically were impacting families in their everyday lives. Can you tell us some of the connections between politics and everyday life that you made working on that campaign?
Yeah. This is kind of taking that Journey School experience and going out into the public. People really do like their teachers. They really do want good schools, good local schools, even if they don't have their children in the schools, because it's such the center of a community. And they want their kids to be happy. They want them to feel like they belong there. They want them to feel heard, and they want them to feel safe in being who they are. Sometimes parents have a different idea of what that looks like. A lot of what's out there in the media world or internet world of what's going on in public schools is false and misleading and meant to create kind of friction where there really isn't or shouldn't be. When you can sit down one-on-one with folks and kind of dispel those myths of what's happening and explain what is actually happening on the ground and the care that the administrators and teachers are taking for each child, those outside influences tend to be less influential.
Well, thank you for that, because I think it's great for everybody to kind of hear how important the local school boards are in school districts for everybody economically, community centered wise. It's one of the things that we were trying to do when we founded WAVE in 2016 was build those community roots for people and give people a bit of a support system with politics where they were maybe feeling ostracized by other community members, and building that political power for people here, and then reshaping things like the school districts to reflect that sense of community. Can you talk a little bit about, as you're leading Wave into this next chapter, whether there are priorities that you have been able to set under your leadership, or is there's so much political turmoil in the last couple of months that's been thwarting those abilities?
All of our priorities are still there. They're the same priorities that we've had since the time that you founded it. And we still have our working action groups on gun safety, on government integrity, on the environment, on voter mobilization, on migrant rights. We recently added one for public education, in addition to also advocating for women's rights and LGBTQ rights, civil rights for everybody. And so those things still remain a priority. And I know that sounds like a lot of priorities, but it is. We feel so strongly about all of those things. What I have been trying to do is build our coalitions and our collaborations with different groups all throughout Orange County and the state to widen our perspective of what is happening, and to also broaden our base of people that we can communicate to and get communications from. One of those great collaborations has been with Indivisible, the OC Indivisible Coalition, and also 5051 was a startup group in February. They've been responsible for creating such a movement and holding regular protests since the administration began. And we have been closely in contact. We're in such unprecedented times. I know we said that the first time around with Trump. It is truly unprecedented, unless you want to go back to, I don't know, 1933 Germany, then maybe there is some precedence there. But but in terms of here in America, in the United States, what we are dealing with is so new. And I think at the beginning, all of us were just in shock. Like we knew Project 2025 was there, and that was their blueprint. But the swiftness of their ability to put things in place and to watch the capitulation of who we thought we would be strong leaders to protect us from that just seemed to dissolve as time went on. We're trying to build those coalitions. We're trying to have ways of people to feel like they still have agency and some power. I recently put in one of these newsletters, I think it's a quote from Alice Walker: the easiest way that people give up power is to think they don't have any. And so I really want people to feel like, our members in particular, to feel like there is still something that they can do, and that they have the tools and a community of people to do those things with.
Let's turn to the piece that you wrote recently for the Truth OC. You were a co-author on what I thought was a very powerful article. I'm going to repeat the title, even though I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast. It was called "Republicans Are Banning Abortion in California. They're doing it in uniquely sinister ways." Many of us think of California as the safe haven in the United States for reproductive rights. That headline stopped me in my tracks. Can you walk us through your article and talk about some of the sinister strategies that you're seeing?
Absolutely. Thank you for reading it. And thank you for finding it compelling, because I think in 2024, when we were campaigning, trying to get a more progressive um, majority to win, one of the things that we talked about a lot was how California was not safe from the national happenings. We were surprised really at how many people just thought, no, we're good. Look, we've got the amendment. We're California. They said they're not going to put a national ban on, and people believed them. I mean, I don't know how you believe an administration that has lied so many times in so many ways, but they did. They still did. We knew that once Trump was elected, that we would start seeing attacks on reproductive rights, even in California. It was one of the items that was in the big, ugly betrayal bill that passed in July. And it was snuck in there. There really wasn't a lot of hoopla around it, but it was a very small line item that disallowed the reimbursement um, of medical expenses by organizations that had more than $800,000 in revenue a year and provides abortion services. And so that pretty much targeted just Planned Parenthood, and it targeted it in just the blue states, because in the red states, there aren't organizations that provide abortion services. So really, it was their way to defund Planned Parenthood without actually putting their name in that bill, because they know that Planned Parenthood is very popular. And we're talking about services that are being cut are non-abortion services, because it already is true that you can't use federal funding for abortion services. That's already been law for many, many years. And so what they essentially went after was the other services that are provided that Planned Parenthood offers, which are STI testing and birth control and even just regular primary care services. Here in California, and particularly in Orange County, we have a part of Planned Parenthood that is just primary care services. And so a lot of the patients in Orange County and San Bernardino rely on Planned Parenthood as their primary care physician. Well, they're cutting the funding for that. And so there's a $50 million hole, which is huge, $50 million hole being put in the budget for just our affiliate. And our affiliate, it has 9 clinics and there's here in Orange County and San Bernardino, and we are the largest in the entire country. What this means is that so many people will no longer have those early detections of their cancer, or of their STIs, both of which can, without that early detection, can really obviously have very harmful impacts on folks. And I think that's what's really sad. Willing to let people be sick, willing to let people die for what for their ideological views.
Yeah, that's really staggering. It shows that we need to continue to elect more women and people who can speak to that, people who've used Planned Parenthood services. And you've spent so much of your career building up leaders, whether it's through school governance, your nonprofit work, or mentoring people through WAVE. And one of the challenges in Orange County is to make sure that the next generation, especially women and young people from underrepresented communities, feel empowered to step forward and run for office. What advice would you give to someone who's listening, who wants to run for office or serve on a board or take some other sort of leadership role in advocacy, but maybe doesn't know where to start?
Well, of course, I'd have them first come join WAVE. Come to one of our meetings. Come to any meetings where politics is happening. A lot of the Democratic clubs are open to anybody who is either a registered Democrat or an independent, and so you can attend those just to get an idea of what happens in these rooms. I'd also say go attend a school board meeting or a city council meeting, starting local, and understand what kind of decisions get made. And then be bold. Reach out to somebody who is in one of these organizations, or even who you might meet at a meet and greet or a Chamber of Commerce presentation, and sort of talk to them about, hey, I'm kind of interested in running for something similar to this, or serving my city or serving my school board. Can you help me get more involved? And really, there's so many ways. It's not just about running for office. A lot of the cities and the counties have these commissions and committees where they need people, sometimes with specific skills, but other times it's just people who have a passion for the particular area that they need to fill. And they're always looking for people to put into those places. And that's a great way to start getting involved in public service, and a great way to learn the ins and outs of what happens and how local government can affect people's lives. You see the president and the Congress and these bigger offices that seem so glamorous. I don't know if that's the right word. Powerful, yes. In terms of day to day and what affects you, it's the local offices and their decisions have the most impact on whether or not your roads are repaired, or a particular school program is still offered, or even like a climate action plan.
Amy, that is very much why we started this podcast. We wanted to highlight people who are active locally and are having an impact on their neighbors. And we found so many interesting people doing so many important things here in Orange County. And you're certainly one of the shining light leaders. So thank you for everything that you've been doing. And we don't want to close without asking you to share with our listeners steps that they can take to support reproductive rights in Orange County. Is it a donation to Planned Parenthood to help fill that $50 million gap?
Yeah. Well, okay. So again, I'm going to go with join WAVE. And then join the mailing lists for Planned Parenthood. They have very strong advocacy programs. There's two sides actually to their advocacy. One side is the pure nonprofit. They're the organization, they're the side of the organization that pays for services. That's the money that runs the clinics, runs the centers. And that's where that $50 million gap is being felt. And then the other side is the advocacy side. It's also nonprofit, but they are able to do political lobbying and also get involved in supporting campaigns. There's two sides to helping with that. One is the money to do the services, but the second piece is having the political will and power and backing to keep those services available and funded. Joining both of those is very important. And I know that they are doing everything that they can to continue to raise funds to plug that hole. I know that they are as dedicated as ever to ensuring that those services continue, and every dollar helps also spreading the news that this is happening, that this is really impacting Orange County women by the thousands, and that we can do something locally to help make sure that they stay around for all of us. And then the other thing that you can do is pass Prop 50 coming in November. The redistricting, which basically is trying to neutralize Trump's impact on Congress. And somebody put it to me this way, which I thought was really great. You can think of it as a football game. Republicans are putting 5 more players on the field. And if Democrats don't do the same, we're 5 people down. So we're just putting the same number of players back on. And so a yes to that gives us an opportunity to change the majority in the Congress, because it's the majority in Congress that determines that federal funding, not just that one little bit that affects Planned Parenthood, but everything else that was affected by that budget with regards to Medicare, Medicaid, the environment, to use of our money against us with ICE and the militarization of our different cities. There's many, many more things that are in there, but just passing Prop 50 is one of the most important things that we can do to save our reproductive rights and also save our democracy.
I'm going to repeat what you said for listeners. Amy wants you to join WAVE, donate to Planned Parenthood, join the Planned Parenthood mailing list, have a conversation with someone about what's going on if you think they're not aware, and vote yes on Prop 50 on, I think it's November 4th.
That's it. Absolutely.
That's great. Well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing your experience and insights from your years of service and education and your leadership now at WAVE and Planned Parenthood. Thank you so much for giving us your wide-eyed view of politics here in Orange County.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County.
And we'll see you next time on Vitamin OC.